The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall. I play Hera Syndulla on Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you always.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, episode 72.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Just, of course, a quick reminder to please share the podcast on your favorite social media platform, whether that's Twitter or Facebook. Also, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and let us know how we're doing. Those 5-star reviews help us get seen by more people. So please go do that and let us know how we're doing. Today, we are continuing our series of character-devoted episodes, and we will be taking a deeper look into the pilot and leader of the Ghost Crew in Star Wars Rebels, so Hera Syndulla herself. Joining me today on the panel are Angela Cialana.
Woohoo! Hello, everyone.
Hello. Second up is Thomas Sanjurjo.
Hey, guys. It's good to be here.
And third and finally this evening is Mike Creevy.
Hello, hello.
It is good to have you guys with us. So we will just kind of jump right into it. I don't think that there was anything newsworthy to share this week. I think Bad Batch is still kind of the next big thing coming our way on May 4th. So speaking of May 4th, be sure to listen to the end of the episode because we've got some pointers on what's coming up for us on May 4th in just a month. So stay tuned for that. But we will begin our discussion of Hera. So coming from the wonderfully reliable Wikipedia, Hera Syndulla was a Twi'lek female revolutionary who became a central figure in the early rebellion against the Galactic Empire and the formation of the Alliance to restore the Republic. Born the daughter of General Cham Syndulla on Ryloth with a brother who died young, she saw firsthand the devastation of the Clone Wars and the reign of the Empire on her homeworld. Syndulla became an expert pilot and left her homeworld and her father's planetary resistance behind, setting off across the galaxy to build her own resistance movement against the Empire aboard her starship, the Ghost. Kanan Jarrus, a Jedi who survived Order 66, joined her during the Gorse conflict and eventually became her lover and father of her son, Jason. Her crew, the Spectres, mounted an insurgency on Lothal and was eventually comprised of the Mandalorian warrior Sabine, Lasat survivor Zeb Orrelios, Syndulla's lifelong astromech droid Chopper, and Padawan Ezra Bridger. So, what are your guys' just general impressions of Hera?
That's a big question.
That's a big question.
Well, I'm excited to talk about her because I think this is the first mainline movie type character that we've talked about so far. And you know, for those of you who may not be as familiar with Star Wars Rebels, Hera, there is so much canon on Hera Syndulla. Literally, you go to Wikipedia, which I did today to review for this episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was so long, the entry on Hera, because not only are there, Star Wars Rebels episodes about her, but there's also comics and there's also books and video game stuff. Video games.
Yeah, I was going to say video game stuff's good.
Yeah, so Hera is all over canon. She does make that little cameo in Rogue One, right? So, Hera, I mean, she's actually a huge figure in canon when you think about how much there is that she's actually in. And I just I really appreciate Hera also because you'll see a lot of like there's a t-shirt, an official Star Wars t-shirt that has the word hero, but it's got a like with her instead of the O, there's a sort of outline of her face or her head. And I think she really has come to stand for what the women figures in Star Wars kind of all are in a way, like her courage, her maternal compassion, her loyalty, her commitment to the rebel cause, her talent, her abilities. I mean, she's just all around. She's an amazing character. So I'm excited to talk about her today.
I like that she fills a role, and I think this is a really important thing that is missed a lot when female characters are kind of shoved to the forefront, that they end up having to be everything, and there's no way to have them rely on other people because they need to prove who they are. And the great thing about her character is that she doesn't. She does what she does really well, and that's be a leader. And that's be that core of this group of people that all have their own, some of them are really skilled at being combatants. Some of them are really skilled at being infiltrators. Some of them are just as skilled as her at being pilots, but she fills that role of kind of being the glue that holds them all together. And she doesn't have to be everything. She can be really good at that and competent and show up as a competent, good character. And it's a fantastic way to see that character grow, especially in this kind of ensemble cast.
Yeah, and just initially, the only thing that I was thinking of that wasn't kind of just wrapped up right there by you two guys, because I think you hit the nail on the head, is, a theme that I don't know if it'll come up later at all, but what I find just sort of naturally communicated through her character is a real maternal, like, I think really good, organic kind of example, a very consistent example of like genuine femininity. You know what I mean? And like a really bold, like outside so much of the nonsense that's out there today and all the confusion, and about what exactly all that is or is not, and that kind of thing. Where so, and again, it's challenging. Like it's challenging if you're trying to write a character like that to not maybe even unintentionally push it one way or the other. So I'm not chastising anybody, for like the way things are oftentimes in movies and stuff like that. Sometimes it's on purpose. I think sometimes it's just difficult. Like, what are you trying to do with this character? And so I just feel like I'm sure a lot of that's the writing. I'm sure a lot of it's Vanessa Marshall, Yeah. And so that's just something that comes across like she just seems like a wonderful, mother and friend, and like all this very, I have a few notes down about some like Marian connections, but maybe we'll get to that later. If that's not too bold. But yeah, I love her character so much.
I think one thing that I have to say about summing up her character is this: Rebels could have been Firefly in the Star Wars universe, except that she grounds it into like this really good, they weren't crazy. They weren't off the rails. They weren't, doing these things without a purpose, because she was always kind of bringing it back to, making sure that they were all connecting with each other and that they were all connecting with the larger cause.
Yeah. And what was great about this whole thing, Star Wars Rebels, was I'm pretty sure it was really the first series that branched out and didn't include any from mainline Star Wars. So we have this whole crew of characters that we are just introduced to for the first time. And, there's not Obi-Wan and Anakin, and Ahsoka's kind of come in as kind of that character that we grow to learn and love. But this is where we're introduced to a family, and it's focused on Ezra and his journey, his hero's journey. But every character in the whole Rebels series is crucially important. And so Hera was one that, unlike Ahsoka, I think was immediately loved, and I watched it, and I remember watching it. I was actually just looking it up. The John Jackson Miller novel, A New Dawn, came out.
That's a good one.
In September of 2014. And I remember I was in my third year of theology in seminary, and I remember sitting out on the patio reading A New Dawn. And the series itself started in October of 2014. So the book was sort of the prequel to get to know Hera and Kanan before they show up in Rebels. And these characters are just ones that you immediately gravitate towards. And I think you guys have already really kind of at least encapsulated what Hera's about. I mean, she's the mom, and not just like stereotypical, cooking, cleaning mom. She's like the bad A mom, she's she is
the nagging mom, though.
Yeah. You gotta take care of everybody, right? You gotta keep them in line.
But she can be soft and compassionate, when it's called for, but she can also be stern and the nagging mom, if you will. I was rewatching I think it was Out of the Darkness.
Out of Darkness? Yeah.
Yeah. Season 1, episode 7. So I was watching a number of them this afternoon. And that one in particular, if you want just like a glimpse of family life on the ghost ship, that one was like quintessential. You've got Sabine, kind of the angsty teenager, who's not happy that Hera isn't sharing all the secrets about Fulcrum. And you've got, Hera and Kanan kind of being the parental figures. And you've got Ezra and Chopper and Zeb just acting like kids.
I just love when she says, "May I ask?" May I ask where all that intel's coming from? And Hera's like, "You may ask." It's like, Mom, like it's just.
Yeah, so that one was a lot of fun for me to go back to because and then she treats each of the groups differently, and she ends up connecting and bonding with Sabine on a level that she doesn't with Ezra, Zeb, and Chopper, and just has them go off and fix things and doesn't trust them and checks their work and everything. So, she's a good mom, I guess, is kind of it boils down to that for me. So I think that she's just an all around good character. So kind of moving on from that, what do you guys kind of think of her character arc in general over the course of the 4 seasons of Rebels?
Well, over the 4 seasons of Rebels, I think she definitely does grow. She actually goes through a lot of life experiences that us as human beings go through. She, we don't just see her as the mom figure. We also see her as kind of like a wife, to Kanan in many ways. Mm-hmm. They definitely have these sort of quarrels and stern talks with each other and heart to hearts. But we also see her as a daughter. We see a couple of episodes with her father and how she is, how she deals with some family strife. She grows in those story arcs. And we also see her grieving loss, the loss of her love. Mm-hmm. And that she's able to overcome that and to come to embrace the new life that comes from that. And so, we really, I think she has definitely a lot of qualities of the typical Star Wars character where it's like she's a pilot and she's courageous and she's bold and she's intelligent, she's a strategist and all these things, but she's also very relatable in many ways. And we do get to see how she grows sort of as a person, I think, throughout Rebels.
I thought it was really interesting. In one of the episodes, I think, I forget if it was Thrawn who pointed it out or someone pointed it out that I think it was Thrawn, that she was forged in war. And it's made clear that she was a survivor of the Clone Wars, and that she, in fact, there's a really cool quote from her that I want to share, because it was Hera talking about her desire to become a pilot. And so actually this is coming from season 2, episode 7, Wings of the Master. where she masterfully is able to pilot this B-Wing and introduces B-Wings officially kind of into the rebellion. But she talks about how she watched the Republic ships that fought to liberate Ryloth during the Clone Wars, and she wanted nothing more than to join them. And she says, quote, I left my family to fly, and if we want freedom, we must make difficult choices. I chose to leave my family. I chose to learn to fly, and I chose to use that ability to help others in need. It's all rooted in something I can't explain, a need to be up there. Because even when there are explosions all around and things are at their worst, I feel like I'm at my best. And I thought that was just an awesome kind of insight into the character of Hera, that she was forged in war, if you will. She was born during wartime, but her desire to help people in need, that is like at the core of who Hera is. Like she doesn't want to be a pilot to be a combat pilot and fight and kill. She wants to be a pilot to help others in need as she can, and that's just kind of staple throughout her entire career as a pilot in the rebellion. So it was interesting that's where she came from, but she didn't let war define who she was.
Yeah, and I like in that you see the difference, a defined difference between a calling and an ambition, right? Where you've got a person who's not doing it for the accolades. The accolades will come because they're good at it. It's natural to them. It's something that they're passionate about, but they're not doing it for those things. And because of that, they're able to kind of excel to that next level and to really reach beyond what the regular potential is and achieve something truly great.
Yeah, I had a list, of when I just started jotting down the things that came to mind about her and her character. And it's a lot of stuff we've said already, but it was just interesting. Like the ones that came to mind, no particular order: brave/courageous, compassionate. There's a little bit of vulnerability in there too. Loyal, right? Like there's no, at no point does anyone even for a moment think that Hera's going to join the dark side. There's something to be said for that. And I have down sturdy and just sort of strong and strength. And see, this is where I think back to the maternal thing and full disclosure, I have a really wonderful mom, so obviously, like if any of our listeners, did not have that experience in life, right? I know a lot of people who don't, this can be obviously a difficult, sort of thing to bring up, or maybe that didn't resonate as much with you, and so I totally understand that, and recognize that. But I think from my experience, there's like my mom is she's tough, but it's, she cries with the best of them. You know what I mean? Like there's, so it's not like strength and sturdiness, is not like a complete, like emotionless wall where you're completely unapproachable. And like Father, like you were saying earlier about that, like the grounding, and keeping people on task. And I think with her, in my opinion, at least just from I haven't rewatched much of Rebels lately, but I seem to remember from my first kind of official watch through, and when I was first watching it, my first impressions of her, it really is, I think you can make a good argument, she's the one who basically brings them from being sort of a somewhat lovable, marauding, not bad guys, but definitely not like part of a cause, into being who they become. They all have a role to play in that, but she's clearly Kanan, especially, I think, but a lot of them, but Kanan especially because of his past, like does not want to do that. Like he actively resists that move. And I seem to remember she's really the one who's like, look, we need to be part of this. People need us. And that's a real kind of calling them out that I think she is mostly probably responsible for.
I think it was the majority of season 1, they were sort of acting as a completely independent rebel cell. Yeah. And I want to say it was at the end of season 1 where Kanan fights the Inquisitor and it kind of opens their world through Hera to this larger connected rebel cells, and that's where Fulcrum comes into play, and Hera's the one who is sort of the catalyst to all of that. And if it was just Kanan as leader, they would have just stayed. I think there's even a discussion between the two of them where they're kind of arguing back and forth about that very idea.
Oh, there's plenty of those over and over again. It's she's constantly moving him forward, and he's like, whoa, let's slow down a little bit.
But I think that's an important quality that Hera has as a leader. And again, you can apply that to a motherly sort of instinct too, but she's drawing out the best in her family, in her crew, and prompting them to go bigger, to join the bigger cause, to commit their life to something other than just their own whims.
Yeah. Even and especially when they don't see it in themselves, right? When they don't feel confident and when they don't feel able. For every single crew member, she has a moment where she pulls them aside and says, "Hey, you can do this," and kind of pushes them out the door. That mother bird, like tossing them out of the nest. Go.
Well, and to her credit too, because I don't want to obviously, for a second downplay Kanan's struggle with it, right? Because the fact of the matter is, he himself is forged and raised in an environment of heavy involvement in the cause of the galaxy, and then all of the people you put all of your security and trust in turn their blasters on you when they get a phone call or a hologram saying execute Order 66. So how the fact that he's ever able to trust anybody again is a miracle, and she's largely responsible for that. You see some of that in the New Dawn novel. So I think it's no small feat for her to be able to even get him to the table about that, let alone actually get him on board, while never in any way downplaying, the trauma that he's carrying with him.
Right. I think back to that moment in Trials of the Darksaber when Kanan is stuck in he's training Sabine to have the Darksaber. And the thing is that he's training her with sticks, and he's not allowing her to use the Darksaber. And he has this holocall with Hera, and Hera basically, calls him out and says, "This is not about you. This is not about what you want. This is about Sabine." And she really, I think, what I wrote down is she leads with her heart and her mind. That she basically gives Kanan a reading on Sabine. She says, Sabine has been hurt by her family, and she's holding back because of that. And so, she has all of this insight into, with Ezra, Ezra joining the Ghost Crew in the first place and staying with them. The fact that he told them, I don't have a family. It's just me. And that she, she supports him being with them. She's very supportive, and she understands people on a deeper level. Even like Lando Calrissian, when he comes into play with the Ghost Crew, and he has this crazy plan, and Hera is just kind of like, I don't know, I think some people would interpret Hera as sort of falling for his charms, but I interpreted that episode as her kind of seeing the real Lando and sort of, knowing that he's kind of a fox and sly and everything, but just going with the plan that essentially sells her as a slave to this weird, shady guy. And then ends up just trusting that Lando knows what he's doing and that things are going to work out. And she's very capable of getting herself out of tough situations as well. So, I think, talking about trauma, I wanted to bring up also that Hera gets over her own trauma as well, because there's a lot of that. But with the Purrgil in particular, that she mentions that the Purrgil, at first she hates them because they are menaces, she says, that she's known a lot of pilots who have died because of collisions with Purrgil, and she ends up, and this goes back to another characteristic of hers, trusting Kanan and Ezra when they say, you know, we need these Purrgil to help us. And she has to kind of get rid of that, you know, put aside her trauma, her difficulties with, you know, knowing that people died who she knew. And ultimately the Purrgil become like this amazing triumphant moment in Rebels because she chose to trust her crew and her family to get through that difficult, you know, situation and that struggle that she had, that interior struggle. So, yeah, those are a couple of things that I just wanted to bring up that I thought sort of showcase Hera's emotional intelligence and her loyalty, all that good stuff.
And I appreciate that you bring that up too, because it also shows Hera as not this invincible, perfect character, but she's just as human, if you will. She's Twi'lek, but I mean, you know, she's just as human as the whole family. So she has her own struggles and her own challenges, and I love how Star Wars Rebels has like brought this family together, and they all are able to get through and grow and heal because of the family unit that they are. And it's you know, it's only because of that. If they were on their own, they wouldn't deal with it. And I love that this show really focuses and has that theme of family, you know, over and over and over and over again. And I think that's one of the reasons that it probably resonates with a lot of Star Wars fans, is just that unit is so good, and we can relate to all the characters at different points in our lives, you know, and so Hera, you know, even with her own challenges, still is that grounding presence, you know, her and Kanan, even though they fight, you know, and so like they're not a perfect couple, and yet they work through it, and they don't let their differences, you know, cause them to ultimately divide and fall apart, but they work through them and heal, and it leads, you know, throughout the entirety of the 4 seasons of Rebels. So,
and they always treat each other with respect. You know, that's something that is really admirable about their relationship. Is yes, they do fight, they do have disagreements, but they always are respectful of each other. And I mean, unless I'm forgetting something, but I think that's also a good sort of role model situation.
I also just love the banter, you know, so not disrespectful by any means, but like the banter between, you know, her and Chopper, or her and Kanan, or, you know, really all of them. You know, there's that family feel, and it's so relatable.
Well, and you can only have that if you're really comfortable with the people that you're with. If you really trust them, that's the only point at which you can get to that level where saying something, you know, calling out a flaw that they have in the moment that they're having that flaw becomes acceptable. And that's, you really see they do a great job of not only just stating that trust, but of also developing it. And that's it's a hard thing to do in a story, to show the development of trust, because as a viewer, you're like, okay, yeah, well, naturally everything just worked out that way. But they put these characters in a lot of situations where there's good reason for them not to trust each other, or there's good reason for them to be leery of what's happening. And they the character doesn't just accept it, they have to overcome that. And it makes for some great character growth all around, because they don't get to just be comfortable with these people because that's what's in the script, right? They have to, like, you actually see these characters struggle with how they're going to interact with each other.
That's one of the great things, that this is a series and not just a 2-hour movie, because they had 4 years, but, you know, 4 seasons where if you're like me, I started watching Rebels when it premiered, so I felt like I was journeying with them for 4 years. I didn't just binge all 4 seasons in, you know, 2 weeks. And so there was also a sense of just, yeah, that trust was earned because I knew where they came from, and I knew, the troubles that they had, back in season 1, and, and it like any family unit or friends that are bonded in this way, it paid off, and it felt like it was paid off well. Let's talk about the relationship between Kanan and Hera.
Let me get my tissues.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
I mean, so to start off with, I just wanted to point this out. I thought that this was kind of a fun bit from back to Star Wars: A New Dawn. So the first, this is like the first encounter with between Kanan and Hera. And Kanan actually doesn't even see Hera, but he hears her voice. And I forget if it's on a comlink or whatever, but there's this wonderful statement that John Jackson Miller puts in it. He says, Kanan, who had no mission in life, now found himself with one, seeing who it was that could be attached to a voice like that. End quote. So I thought that was kind of
hearing.
Right. Kind of a fun comical sort of foreshadowing of that them two are going to have quite the history together.
Father, do you know, did John Jackson Miller write for the show at all at any point, or is he just that good at capturing? Because I haven't read that in a while, but I mean, it was just so good and so fitting. Sometimes I feel like they don't quite get it, but his did.
So I don't think he's written for the show. Okay. He's definitely just a author of the novels, but you can just about guarantee that there was conversations with Dave Filoni. In fact, Dave Filoni did the foreword. So
right.
So more than likely Dave kind of gave him some clues, like, could you throw in some relationship-y kind of things and
if I remember correctly, because I think they do guess at about like what Hera's age, is in the book, and she's kind of in her late teens. And I think officially on Wikipedia it was saying that she's like 29, I think, around the time of the Battle of Yavin. So like, so you have basically a little over a 10-year arc, kind of, I think, if you take New Dawn up through Rebels. I mean, yeah, there's gaps and stuff there, but it's a good chunk of time.
Right. And even this book, I forget how long it takes place before Rebels, but it's before they even meet up with Zeb or Sabine. So it's years, I think, before even the first episode of Rebels. So what are your guys' thoughts on that relationship? Do you
I think we're all nervous to go into it. No, it's like, because where do you,
Did it feel like it was meant to happen? I guess would be maybe my.
I think it's, to this is a bit of a stretch to quote oh my gosh, Callisto from Pirates of the Caribbean is a touch of destiny about it, for sure. I mean, it's so funny to me, like in that book, for those who didn't read it, how well he captured, I think, the essence of their relationship, which is what's so beautiful to me about it, is it's always the same, just like how, and this is just, at least in my experience, like with my wife, it's like, we've grown so much, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm still me, she's still her. The things that were like, even if we've improved in lots of areas, like the things that drove us nuts about each other or that caused tension, 8 years ago, still do now. It's just, there's like, it's a little bit better, but it's like, it usually isn't so much that there's a completely new category that we've discovered, other than with kids, of course, because we didn't have kids. But so now it's like, what's this? Like, what do I do? Of course. But I love that with the two of them, they do have that banter. There is, they both have a way of kind of, I think, Kanan especially, I feel like, he has a way, he knows how to push her buttons, right? Mm-hmm. And he does it on purpose. and it's, what I love about it is that's a lot like Han, but it's not just ripping off Han, like, so that was another thing I liked too about how he pushes her buttons, but also she's up to it. She can kind of push back, but she also, I think, tends to be a little more, I think she really leverages that compassion and knowing his background. I think she really kind of has patience with him, with all of that baggage, of course. Those are just a few things off the top of my head.
I think there's a danger in looking at the characters and thinking that she brings out the best in him, but that he doesn't do much for her. And I think that the way to look at that properly is that her relationship with him is explicit. It's very out front, and it needs to be, because we need to see her being direct with him, and he needs that directness. Whereas when you look at what she gets out of the relationship, it's much more subtle and internal. It causes her to be a better leader because she has to step up, right? She has to constantly fill roles that she wasn't necessarily expecting or ready for. And it's not that he tells her she needs to, but that she sees that and steps into it, right? And so with what she gets out of the relationship is much more subtle than what he does, but it's really important. And the balance there is so beautiful because you see this dance between the two of them, where as she pushes him out more, he also draws her into situations that she has to respond to. And so there's this this beautiful ebb and flow to who's kind of, making the boundaries where they are. And then it really does. It builds up to that beautiful moment where they, it's a finally moment for us as the viewers, where it's like, okay, you guys have been dancing around this for so long, and we want to see something come of it. And when it does, it's a surprise, but it's not a surprise. And I think that it's the most natural thing in the world, but it's also like, it just comes at this moment where you're not really expecting it entirely. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, that's there. And that's the way I think a lot of things happen. I know with my wife and myself, we were friends first. We were really close friends. And it just was one of those things where we were talking on the phone and it just happened, right? Like I was telling her that I was going to come up and visit her, and it just clicked. Like things just fit, and we both knew that at that moment that was it. And sometimes you don't expect it; it just is there. And I love seeing that kind of played out in these characters.
And by the way, a connection between my wife and Hera is that my wife will tell you that she thought that I was annoying when she first met me, and I do think there is a little bit of that too. No.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, whenever you think of Hera, at least for me, like I always think of her like yelling at someone from the pilot seat, like, Kaden, like Chopper. That's right. So yeah. No, what I was going to say is I think it's interesting that what you were saying, Thomas, it's not until the end of Kanan's life that we see her say, I love you to him. Mm-hmm. And at first he's like, oh, must be the truth serum talking. But she's like, no, this is me. And yeah, I think that was why I was personally like really surprised that they ended up having a son. But I think it goes back to what you were saying, that Kanan is a lot in his head, and Hera doesn't necessarily need him to express his care for her in certain ways. She's very, like you were saying, I mean, she calls him love a lot throughout the series. But it's just the way that they wrote that episode Jedi Knight, where she actually says it to him. And it's sort of like they wrote it as if it was the first time ever that she had said that to him. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. There's probably a lot of couples out there that can relate to like communication breakdowns and communication difficulties. And definitely, what's cool about them is that they do have those, like we were saying, but they they work through them, but it is interesting that they have shown their love for one another in a different way than just verbally, which, you know, I think that speaks to maybe their wounds, you know, their past. So, yeah.
You were just making me think of, I wonder what their love languages are.
So and I was thinking too, I wonder, I know Dave Filoni's like really deep in this stuff, so I wonder how much he was thinking of her being Twi'lek, and that being you know, that maybe she doesn't know to express love that way, because they have the Leku, and that is a sensory organ that allows them to kind of feel people's emotions. So I wonder how much of that is that she doesn't need the commentary because she can tell, right? She knows. So I don't know. That's interesting kind of throw in there for Star Wars.
So I just looked up the love languages because that's what I was thinking about. But words of affirmation. So maybe not so much for them to quality time spent together. So that could be one. Physical touch, probably not as much, at least from what we saw. Acts of service. That one could be another big one for them too. And then receiving gifts. So, yeah, maybe not so much on the words of affirmation, but I do love how it does show, they do show each other that they love each other, you know, and I really appreciated the fact that they are portrayed as kind of the friends first relationship, and that, you know, it's not just this sappy, you know, kind of honeymoon phase of a relationship that just, you know, happens. But rather, I mean, you can tell that they have a really strong bond of friendship before even the words "I love you" are uttered by either of them. You know, and I think that that's just super important, just in general. I mean, you know, as humans, it's and I'm sure, of course, you all can attest to that a friendship is crucial in your relationships with your spouses.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know? And so I do really appreciate that they showed that, you know. And then Kanan himself, of course, sacrificing his life for Hera, kind of that ultimate expression of love. Of course, he's doing it for the rebellion too, but in that moment, I mean, it's very clear there's that moment between him and Hera, and he's saving her specifically. When he sacrifices his life. So I think that is a very crucial moment in their relationship.
By the way, Father, do you know that according to the official birth dates and, you know, ages and everything, he's 33 when he does that?
Wow.
Oh, really? Huh.
That can't be that. There are no coincidences. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
something there.
Definitely the Christ figure for that arc. And I think I, like you, Angela, was surprised about the child. I sort of expected more of a development of a romantic relationship before that surprise. I have to say that I'm okay with the surprise, and I think little Jason Syndulla has got some potential for some really cool stories down the road. Whether we'll see him or not, hopefully we do. In fact, maybe he would show up in Ahsoka.
Well, is there? I had a note here to ask. Is there development on the? I heard it brought up, but I don't know if there's ever any like answer to it, like a year or so ago. But canonically, like the ghost is clearly in the end battle in Episode 9. Like that's not disputed. Who's flying it? Is the question. I mean, it's you know 30 plus years after Jedi. So is it Hera? Is it Jason? So
is it both?
Or open ended on purpose? Yeah. So
One
thing we know for sure probably is Chopper's in there.
Definitely. There's no way Chopper's not in there.
Waving his little hands, you know.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything yet to clarify that.
See, I thought it was really interesting with their relationship. It would not have bothered me if the kiss and kind of all of that aspect of it had just been the first time we had seen it on screen, because they were so comfortable with each other that it was very much like they were already in a relationship. So I really wouldn't have been bothered if they just said that was what was going on all along, and that they were a private couple. They had a public face that we saw in Rebels as the commanders of this crew, and they had also a private life that they were living as well, and then they just didn't let the two, interfere with each other. That's how it was.
That's kind of how I interpreted it. I feel like when that, yeah.
Let's move on then to just our favorite qualities, which we've already mentioned a number of them, but are there other qualities of Hera that we haven't talked about that you guys have jotted down as your favorite qualities of her?
I like how she can deal with Chopper. her interactions with Chopper, like, I love Chopper just in general. Chopper is hilarious, but her interactions with Chopper are always the absolute best.
The best, yeah.
Because she doesn't take any guff from him, and he is nothing but guff. He's a bucket of guff.
Well, what I was just gonna go back to was something that Thomas had said at the beginning, which was that she knows what she's good at. And I think, apart from what you had mentioned, I think that is a very good lesson for kids to learn. I mean, adults too. I think a lot of adults still don't understand the concept of like vocation, being where you're called to be, like in the present moment, and that is the best thing to be concerned about. You don't necessarily have to know where everyone else fits in the picture, but just really like taking care of, okay, what is my role in this? And she knows that very well. But as you were saying, she does pull out the best in others. And I think that's just a really, really great virtue. And I think, if we just worked on that as people, this world would be like amazing, like who am I, and like what am I called to be right now in my family, like in my community, and then just like trying to be the best at that. I think she's just an awesome example of that.
It's an important part of surrounding yourself with good people is to improve those people that are around you, right? Is not just that you've chosen these good people and now I found a better one, so I'm going to get rid of this one, but to say I've chosen these good people for a reason. Let me encourage them to be better, because as they become better, I also become better. And the rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah, she doesn't try to be good at everything, and that's another one of the lessons that we can learn, is that of trusting your family, trusting your crew, if you will, that you're going to do your part and you're going to do to the best of your ability, but you're also going to trust the people that you have around you to do their part. And, and just like vocation, that, not everybody has that same calling or those same gifts, and to recognize the gifts in other people and to let them accomplish those gifts and not try to, take it away from them as some sort of I have to do it all. She's very good at recognizing the gifts in others and cultivating that in them.
Well, yeah. And I just had down that, the kind of the Mary connection, just simply, what I wrote down was, I think she has both those classic kind of somehow perfectly together when a lot of times they seem at odds, or can seem at odds if you kind of caricature them, but humility and magnanimity, that while she's simultaneously completely humble, nobody's perfect, but Hera, I think, has that clearly that humility. She's not running around acting like she's the main character of her own life, and that's, like Angela was saying, can you imagine what the world would be like if we were doing that too, because I'm not the main character. I tell my students that all the time. It's like, I know how crazy that sounds, guys. That's the point. Everything that tells you that's not true is lying to you. Like it's the fallen world. Everything's on its head. The fact is, you're not the main character of your own life. And that's where joy lies in realizing that, but at the same time that, humility is not what, I mean, a lot of times I know in my own life, I'm struggling with that. You think it's beating yourself up, and it's not, I love the Magnificat because it summarizes all of that Mary's just completely humble, but by the same token, just singing, I mean, like, all generations will call me blessed. You know, that's not a prideful statement. Like, she's prophesying, and that's a pretty bold thing to say, but it's precisely because of this great thing that's been done for her, you know? And so I think in Hera, who's not the Blessed Mother, but still, you know, the idea that true humility, but she's got big magnanimous, you know, ideas and plans and hopes, and, you know, she dares to think these, like, all things are possible kind of attitude. And getting back to what we said earlier about Kanan, I think one of the benefits, and I don't know if you mentioned this, Thomas, but just when you were talking about Kanan and his input, I mean, I think he's a true Jedi, and he sort of rediscovers that. And I think there's a real role that plays in sort of the spiritual bolstering, you know, the spirituality in a sense of that, of her, or of him kind of contributing. I think that in a lot of ways to her outlook is part of that as well. So those are just some more things I had down here.
I have a few comments to throw out on humility. Humility comes from the Latin, and it actually could be translated as grounded or from the earth. It comes from humus, which means earth. And humility is one of those things that, you know, if you kind of have that in mind in your translation, it means acknowledging what's real. You're grounded. You know, and so it's not a, you know, you want to just speak down to yourself or patronize yourself, but you're acknowledging what's true, what's real, what's grounded, you know, and so that's authentic humility. And that's exactly what the Blessed Mother does. And I think Hera also, you know, can model in her own life. One of the other ways that I like to describe humility to people, if I'm talking about it, is it's not thinking less about yourself. It's thinking about yourself less, you know, so it's not this, you know, just kind of downplaying my own gifts or talents because I'm being humble, you know, because I'm scared of being prideful. No, it's actually, you know, just, yeah, it's not thinking less of yourself. Just think about yourself less, but be real and be grounded. So I think Hera does exemplify that virtue.
Yeah, and I don't think that's looking too deep into it, because as I was reminded when I was going through Wikipedia as well, that Dave Filoni and another one of the writers as well has mentioned that some of these characters were named for specific historical or mythological or religious characters or figures, in order to kind of drive home something about them. And so Hera, you know, being the goddess who was the wife of Zeus, right? And the goddess of women, of marriage, of motherhood, childbirth. So all of those qualities, you know, we've been talking about, right, endlessly. But I think also, you know, that look at, you know, being grounded, I think also was very intentional, you know, in connecting with those different aspects of what she really stands for. That was very intentional, I think.
Any other lessons we can learn from her character?
I want to say reconciliation, because of how she deals with, I mean, everyone really, but especially with her father. I really, really appreciate the couple of episodes that we get, but especially the one, I think it's Hera's Heroes, but it might have been something else. But she talks about, with her father, she has this really kind of cool conversation where we hear her using her Ryloth accent, which was neat. So kind of falling back into that sort of childhood, like, part of her brain. And her father actually tells her that she's wasting her life. And she first of all, I like the fact that she sticks to her convictions and her mission. And she says, no, I'm not wasting my life. I'm helping people. And ultimately she comes to this point where her father even is like pointing a blaster at her and threatening to blow up this ship that all of her crew members are on, and is really kind of, we have been told that Cham Syndulla was sort of, I think, thrown into this warlike attitude when his wife died in the war, and he only cared about the liberation of Ryloth at that point and sort of vengeance. But so to face her father in those circumstances, I think what she does is she offers him her heart in this amazing way, where she actually tells him, the reason that I do what I do in helping people is because of your example, that I saw you helping people, and she's creating this common ground with him. She's again being very humble. She's saying, hey, I learned this from you, and this is all, who I am today is because of you. And she didn't have to say that. We know that she was very hurt by him. She didn't want to talk to him at the beginning of that episode. And she didn't like him, I think, in many ways. But when push came to shove, she was able to really to reconcile with him truly. And he came to the point where he actually ended up helping them. And she found a way to satisfy both what she was trying to go for, her mission, and his mission as well. So I really, really like that episode a lot. I think it says a lot about her and her character and what we can learn about, reconciling with people. And sometimes, things won't end up that way. Things won't end up wrapped up in a bow, and, you're on this great, wonderful relationship with the other person. But I think, ultimately just the way that she, we know that she handled herself, and that she presented herself to the other person that had hurt her very deeply, obviously, is a great lesson that she teaches.
That's awesome. Yeah. Any other lessons you guys got? If not, we'll go on to your favorite moments. What are your favorite moments with Hera?
It's tough. Yeah. There's a lot, I really like the episode where, she's stuck in the ship. It's towards the end of the series, and she's stuck in the ship, and and she's having to repair it. Everybody else is off doing their thing, and she can't be involved. Right. And it's such a great episode because you get to see her without everyone, and that it completely changes the tone of the character, because so often she is, she's the one that they anchor to. And so now not only do they not have their anchor, but she doesn't get to be the anchor, and she has to move outside of that shell of herself where she lets everybody else do what they're good at. And she has to really just take on all the hats and do it all to fix the ship, to get the ship there in time. And seeing that moment in her character where she can step up when she needs to, right? But she's more comfortable getting the right people in the right positions. And to see that not only is that that a quality of hers, but that she's capable of doing all the other things. She just knows when it's not her responsibility, and she's comfortable with that, and is good at not delegating, but encouraging and causing people to rise to the occasion.
That's cool. I never would have picked that. I think I always enjoy hearing what everyone's favorite moments are, because it's kind of like a peek into your brain in a way.
Yeah. Well, I'll share mine. I actually rewatched Hera's Heroes. So the episode that you were referring to, Angela, is not Hera's Heroes. It was the other episode with
something Ryloth.
Yeah,
Ryloth or something like that.
Hera's Heroes is where Thrawn has captured her hometown or her home village, and he's captured, or they want to go in. Hera wants to go in and retrieve her Kalikori, the art thing that has every mother adds something to it as it's passed down from generation to generation. So it's a piece of art that reflects her ancestry and her family. and it's got huge sentimental value. But what I love about it is that this becomes a personal mission for Hera, and she even recognizes that at the beginning of the episode, and yet the entire Ghost crew wants to help her on this mission because they want to help her, even though it's not a mission for the rebellion. And initially Hera doesn't want to do it because it's not a rebellion mission. But they end up going in and helping her. And it's also the first time that Hera and Thrawn come face to face. So Thrawn is definitely one of my absolute favorite villains. And I'm also a sucker for art. So I really appreciate his appreciation of art. And so he recognizes the Calicori as something that's unique and precious, and can give him insight into who Hera is as a leader. And of course, he's using it to understand her and to be able to win this war against the rebels, and not just appreciating it for its sake as art and representing Hera's family. But even in that, Hera goes back to her Ryloth accent. So that was also really cool, because she's trying to mimic a slave and get out of Thrawn's clutches, and of course Thrawn sees right through it, and he's totally in analyzing mode with Hera. But I really love that whole thing. And of course, at the end of it, Thrawn gets the Calicori, and Hera doesn't end up leaving with it. But at the end of that episode, she makes the comment that it's her family, the Ghost family, that will help her preserve the memory of her family and her ancestry without the Calicori. Thankfully, later on in the season, Kanan gets it back for her, but that's a whole season away. Oh,
actually.
Okay.
My favorite moment with Hera is in Jedi Knight, where she's being interrogated by the mind probe. Mm-hmm. And she's like totally loopy. And she's saying all these ridiculous things. And I really like when Kanan comes and rescues her, and she's like, I have something to tell you. And you think it's like, I love you or whatever. And it's like, I hate your hair. and then he says, I brought you a present. And she's like, a present? And then he hands her the Calicori, and she's like, Kanan, this is mine. He's like, I know. And she's like, then it's not really a present. And she's like super loopy when she's saying it too. But I love that. And then I love how like even a couple minutes later, like she's like still stumbling, and she's like, it's basically like, I guess when you get injected by this mind probe, you're essentially just like, it's like a truth serum. I think that's what Kanan says. It's like, you just kind of act like you've been on anesthesia for a long time, and you're totally loopy and you can't walk straight and stuff. So she almost falls off this ledge, and then he catches her. But then these stormtroopers start shooting at them, and immediately it's like somebody flips a switch in her brain, and she just grabs a blaster, and she has like perfect aim, and she just gets those guys. So yeah, that part of the episode, obviously the very end, is always touching to watch when Kanan, sacrifices himself. But I have to say my favorite is when we kind of see the other side of Hera, and she, she has that truth serum, and she's just, you see her sense of humor, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would just mention, as far as a favorite moment, that the favorite one recently for me, just from some of these rewatch throughs, so it wasn't from a huge range, but in that what was it, in Out of the Darkness, when she's with Sabine, and this, maybe just because of the commentary on trust that's in there, but Sabine's understandably trying to get a lot of information, and it's like she's worried about being roped into something, like she was before. And so it's understandable, but it's like Hera's, I think, progressively able to communicate it better through the episode. But it's like, look, and this resonated with me just because of, I was a military intelligence officer. So there's some of this is still in me where it's like, look, sometimes you can't know certain things, and it's hard. And and see, it's not, you know, now I'm, even as a parent now too, I'm starting to be like, Daddy, why? It's like, it's difficult for, he's like, or some of these moments where it's just like the stakes are so much higher with Hera and Sabine and that, but trying to get across to her, like, look, this is like, you don't understand. There are lives on the line. There's certain things you can't know, certain things like, it has to be compartmentalized. There's a bigger picture here than your pain and your, as important as that is. But she has a way of trying to keep, I think, bringing that up in more, a little more tender, a little more direct. Like, she's very authentic with Sabine through that. And you can see at the end, I think, of that episode that there's still, Sabine's not like, okay, everything's great, no problem. But she believes in Hera more. Mm-hmm. And there's a win there, that authenticity of like, okay, I'll trust you, because you seem to, you're not the Empire, so that authenticity. And I think that's just, as a dad, as a teacher, as someone who knows like youth ministry. I mean, all of that matters for me, of course, it's not the perfect argument. It's the being real, that really matters.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Any final observations on Hera?
This is more of just a question, because the Wikipedia article, I don't know if that's a real person or a really well done CGI. I think it's from the game.
I think
it's
the
picture, the picture they have of her. It almost weirds me out, because it's like the way we know Hera's from Rebels, and I wonder why they would pick that picture for her.
Also on the novel, I mean, she's got more of a human, like less animated look.
Yeah. It is just funny.
But yeah, I think that's actually from Squadrons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But to be fair, Vanessa Marshall did the voice, and I'm pretty sure she did the mocap for it too. So, so it is based
believable.
On right. It's based on her likeness. But after you're used to the animated version of Hera, it is a little odd sometimes to see it
in Rebels is heavily stylized too. It's even more so than Clone Wars was. I think it had its own very unique style.
It's like that moment where you're like, oh wait, this is like Hera's real now. No,
right?
It's sort of strange.
Very good. Well, that is going to conclude our first part discussion on Hera Syndulla. So, listeners, of course, we want to know what your thoughts and opinions are on Spectre 2, Hera Syndulla herself. So definitely let us know what your thoughts are. Email us or comment on our Facebook or Twitter page to let us know. You can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com, and you can find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at SQPN. At this point, I want to give one listener feedback. We got an email from Catherine, and she's responding to our Darth Jar Jar episode. And first line is, haha. So she said, or staying with the April's Fool theme, how about Jar Jar the Force Fool? She's referring to like a holy fool. I believe Jar Jar to be so aware of the Force that he is a Force fool. He does not follow the Jedi or the Sith, but purely the movement of the Force. Thus, both Jedi and Sith would see the need to watch him carefully. Fools closest to the king or emperor are not necessarily his ally. And then she asks, why was Jar Jar made a general? Well, just like in the business world today, when an outlandish, seemingly impossible plan is proposed, the one appointed to lead it is the one most easily blamed in the event it fails. Jar Jar can easily be thrown under the droid tank, so to speak. Please do a Thrawn episode. As an artist, he is my favorite Star Wars character. Great work on the character episodes, Catherine. Yeah, those are some good points. And I do think at some point we will be doing a Thrawn episode. He is one of my favorite villains of all time. So we just have to kind of plan for that. So stay tuned, because that will happen at some point down the road.
We might have to do multiple Thrawn episodes because
yes.
He's still in development very much.
Yeah.
The challenge with Thrawn is that he is now in Rebels, the series, but he's also got, by the end of this year, he's going to have 6 canon novels, and then he is likely to show up in the Ahsoka series. So there is, there's a lot going on in Thrawn's story. So,
well, it's funny for him not being a mainline villain, I think there is a lot of interest in him as a character.
It's because he's been here for decades and he is such a fan favorite for all the Legends fans.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's just a cool villain. You know,
he's fantastic.
Yeah, he is.
He's exactly what you want in the Empire, which is this logical, analytic, bureaucratic, just very straight.
He's often been.
He's like a Bond villain.
And he's been referred to also as a Sherlock Holmes kind of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Well, Catherine,
ironically enough, Lars Mikkelsen, rumored to potentially play him live action. That would be a dream come true. And he was, of course, in Sherlock. So there's all kinds of connections.
His brother played
Galen.
Yes, Galen Erso in Rogue One. So he is.
That's right.
He is not.
He's family,
and he's not foreign to acting and being in live action. So if he's in it, I will be so happy. So Catherine, there's a sneak peek of a Thrawn related episode. So stay tuned for more though down the road. At this point, too, we would like to take a moment and thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including this week Peter E, Daniel M, James O, Billy C, and Placid K. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows that we make here at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, be sure to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast feeds, or you can find us on the SQPN YouTube channel. Just click the bell to get notifications of new episodes. And you can find previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. And another exciting announcement, after a small hiccup with our merchandise store, we are back. So you can get a even different now version of the official Secrets of Star Wars t-shirt. And we have these t-shirts for the show that encapsulates our philosophy of finding hope in a galaxy far, far away. And they are available in various styles and sizes. So you can get your Secrets of Star Wars shirt at sqpn.com/merch. We will be back in 2 weeks where we will be joined by the voice behind Hera herself. So Hera Syndulla Part 2. So we will be talking to Vanessa Marshall here on the podcast. And so we are super, super excited for that and happy to welcome her onto the podcast. So Vanessa will be joining us to talk about all things Hera and her experience in the Star Wars universe, voice acting, especially such an iconic character. And patrons, this is an exciting opportunity for you as we want to give you a special thank you for being patrons of the show. We want to allow you to submit questions that we will then ask Vanessa when she is on the podcast. So this is your chance to help guide our discussion with Vanessa through the questions you want us to ask her to answer on the show. And we will compile these questions we receive and do our best to get them proposed to Vanessa. So patrons, you definitely don't want to miss this out on this opportunity. And just go to your Patreon feed and there's a post there that you can comment your question to her under that. And we are compiling those. And again, if you want to become a patron of SQPN, please go to sqpn.com/give. Also, one other thing, mark your calendar on May 4th, Star Wars Day, at 9 p.m. Eastern, or that's 6 p.m. Pacific time. We are going to be doing another special live episode streamed on Facebook with video, and we want to interact with you during that live broadcast. So in preparation for that special broadcast, you may want to re-listen to our May 4th episode from 2020, because there may be prizes on the line. If you can't pick up on the hint, watch our episode from last year, and we will be asking questions and be giving out prizes. So please join us for that. Mark your calendars, May 4th, 9 p.m. Eastern. So until next time, Angela Cialana, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
My pleasure.
Thomas Sanherho, thank you for joining us this evening as well.
It's been great.
And Mike Creevy, thanks for joining us this evening.
Oh yeah, always a blast.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.